0106, subtracting integers. Before we begin, can you please get a blue and red pencil, marker, highlighter, crown, lipstick, whatever you prefer. But we're going to need that for what we're doing today. Okay, let's begin. So the three rules for adding and subtracting integers. First rule, if the integers have the same sign, add them and keep the sign. Here's some examples. -5 minus 7. When you're doing this, look at the operation as a sign. So this is a -5, that's pretty easy. But since that minus is in front of the 7, let's consider that as a -7. Signs are the same, so we'll go 5 plus 7 is 12, and since the signs are the same, we'll keep the sign and we get -12. Here we have two positives. If there's nothing in front, it's a positive. So this time, instead of doing a red circle, so that we can keep them separated, let's do a blue square or rectangle. This one will be a rectangle. Signs are the same, so we'll do 8 plus 5 is 13, and since they're both positive, it stays positive. So what are we going to do here? They're both negative, so we're going to put a red circle and another red circle. Add them together, keep the sign, we get -11. They're both positive, so blue square, and blue square gives us 9. So squares for the positives, circles for the negatives. So there's our first rule. If the integers have the same sign, add them and keep the sign. Our second rule is, if the integers have different signs, subtract them and keep the sign of the number with the higher absolute value. Our first example. So we have a negative, so we'll put a red circle, and a positive. Blue square. We have different shapes, so we need to subtract. So we'll do 10 minus 5, and since we had more negatives, the absolute value of -10 is 10. We'll get -5 there. 25 minus 30 is a positive 25, so that'll be a blue square. And then we have a -30 is a red circle. Different shapes, so we need to subtract. And that's going to give us 5. Since we had more negatives, it'll be a -5 again. We've got a -16, so we get the red circle. A positive 9, so the blue square. Subtract, and we'll get a -7. Our next problem is 36 minus 40. Blue square, red circle will give us a -4. So to review, first rule, if the integers have the same sign, add them and keep the sign. Second rule, if the integers have different signs, subtract them and keep the sign of the number with the higher absolute value. Our third and final rule, 2 consecutive negative signs equals a positive. For example, 8 minus a -10. We have a minus and a minus, 2 negative signs. We're going to change that to a positive, and we'd write it as 8 plus 10. Signs are the same. So we have our blue square and another blue square, and that gives us our 18. -4 minus a -7. We've got a negative and a negative. So we make that into a +7. That'll be a red circle, blue square, and signs are different, so we subtract and we get a +3. Here we have 3 minus -5, so we'll rewrite that as 3 plus 5. That's going to be a blue square and a blue square, and that gives us 8. Last example, -9 minus -5. So we have -9 plus 5. So red circle, blue square, and that's going to give us -4. Problem number 1. 9 minus -12. Let's put our boxes and our circles in. So we have 2 consecutive negative signs. We'll make that into a positive. So we have a blue box and another blue box. And that takes us to our first rule. If the integers have the same sign, add them and keep the sign. So we get 21. Number 2, 71 minus 123. We'll put our blue box and our red circle, and that's rule number 2. They have different signs, so we subtract and keep the sign of the larger one, in this case 123, so that gives us -52. Number 3, we've got a blue box and another red circle, so we will subtract, and we're going to keep the sign of which one? The blue box. So we get 166. This one's a little bit different, so take it one step at a time. First thing we're going to want to do is we have 2 consecutive negative signs, so that's going to equal a positive. So I'm going to rewrite that as -90 plus 80 minus 20. I'm going to ignore the minus 20 for a moment and deal with the -90 and the positive 80. So I have a red circle and a blue box, which gives me different signs. So I subtract, which is -10, and then I have a -20. So that will be, the signs are the same, so we add them together, and we end up with -30. Would you try number 5 on your own, please? Okay, we've got a red and a red circles, so we'll add them together and we get -18. Will you try number 6, please? Pause the video, and when you're ready, start it up again. Okay. We're going to take care of the -17 and the +25. They're different, so we'll subtract, and since we have more positives, it'll be a +8. We have 2 negatives next to each other, so we'll make that a positive. And we have 8 plus 58, so we have 2 blue boxes. Add them together, and we get 66. And we're going to skip 7 and 8, so let's go to number 9. You lose $50, then spend $35. Let's start out losing 50. That's a bad thing for most people. So that's a -50. Then you spend 35. While spending money is fun, it's still considered a negative. So that'll be -35. Our signs are the same, so we'll do our 2 red circles for the negative, and we add them together, and we get -85. So you basically lost $85. Would you try this one, please? Be careful, because there's kind of a trick in it. So pause the video, and when you've finished, come back and see what you got. Hopefully it's the same as me. All right, so from 0 degrees, the temperature increases 17 degrees. So where do we start? We start from 0. I know most of you want to ignore it, but especially with temperature, 0 is kind of an important thing. So we start with 0, we increase 17 degrees. So we add 17. Then we drop 25 degrees. So there's the start of our equation, or sorry, numerical expression. And we've got a positive 17, which combined with the 0 gives us 17. Here they have different signs. So we'll subtract, and we end up at negative 8 degrees. This is what we're going to do in class. So make sure that when you do it, you put a circle or a box around each integer. And that's it.